Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We are going today to discuss how we can use how we can get ready for the European Cyber Resilience Act upcoming this year, using OWASP SAM project as a foundation for the compliance. And I will go over all details in a moment. You probably all saw the sign, the CE mark. Whatever you buy in Europe, we see it all the time. It's on any box, on any electronics, any toy, any product, even big industrial machines. It represents that the product is safe for consumption. The chemicals are good, that the toy can be licked by children, that they will not poison you, and industrial machines is not going to catch your finger. With Cyber Resilience Act, the CE mark is going to be extended also for the cybersecurity, and I will tell you more about it now. My name is Nariman Agatagiyev. I'm founder of Secure Habits. I'm an application security architect. I've been in software since childhood for like 24 years now. I'm in application security domain for about 9 years. I'm a lucky member of OWASP SAM core team. This is a maturity application security maturity model. I'm liaison at ISO 2734 working group representing OWASP team. And this standard is about building application security program right, the good way. And I'm official partner of Xygeni. It's a tool provider that helps you support your pipeline, build security, deployment security, and many more. That is absolutely necessary for the CRA. In short, if you only have 2 minutes, and that's why you're here, what is CRA? CRA law is going to enforce some level of product security for end consumers for better informing them about their risks. End of this year, some of the obligations will be already applicable, especially notification obligations, and end of 2027, full applicability will start. And it applies to all the products with digital elements and connected data processing on the back end of it. For those who are not familiar with European laws, we are very innovative with different legislations laws here. That usually there are 2 types of laws. You have regulation and directive. CRA is a regulation. It's decided in Brussels by the European Commission, and it applies to all the European countries in one go, and it's not customizable, so it applies right away everywhere in the same way. And it's not flexible for any other country. And you also have some directive, like NIS2, where European Commission publishes a directive to all European member countries, and they all have to individually implement this new law one by one, and they have the freedom, flexibility to customize it to their needs. In our case, it's about CRA. It will be applicable, no doubt. It starts this year, so we have to be ready. Talking of NIS2, I just want to give a bit of context, like what's the difference between NIS2 and CRA. These are 2 very hot new laws in Europe. The NIS2 intention purpose is to protect European citizens from having inconvenient situations because some critical infrastructure and critical factories, manufacturers in Europe are compromised due to security flaws. It's a bit similar to, the scope here is a bit similar to ISO 27000. It intends to protect the organization, the manufacturer. And CRA, its aim is to protect the consumers. So the full focus is on the end users here, that they don't, they are not compromised and their security is respected and privacy is respected. Now, the CE mark, so we said it's applicable for products with digital elements, and I'm going to explain what that means exactly. Products with digital elements, it's a software or hardware product. It means on-premise software too. And it's remote data processing solutions. So if you have any hardware or software on-premise solution, but you have any backend business logic there, the CRA also covers that part. So it's a whole system is in the scope, including software and hardware components being placed on the market separately, even if those 2 things are placed on the European market separately. So this is the scope of this law. And whenever you're walking in any digital electronic supermarket like MediaMarkt or any other electronic store in your country, almost everything you see except printer paper, probably is under the CRA law. So everything here must comply with the new regulations and implement new security requirements if they want to place this market on the European market. On-premise software, I know this is Windows set is not sold anymore this way on DVDs, but if you are delivering your software to your customers on FTP server or in some ways by DVDs, that software that runs on the machines, on computers or data centers owned by your end user, by customer, all that software must be compliant too. Typical example, maybe some CAD software for engineering departments that you install on your desktop. Yeah, this needs to be compliant. Now you need to demonstrate that this type of software is developed with secure by design, secure by default, all these principles in place. Online software is not included. So if your software purely runs in browser, it's not considered on the end user's computer. Well, actually, it's in the browser, but it's not in the scope. But your online software, which runs in the browser, might be fallen under the NIS2 law if it's a critical infrastructure. So make sure that to check that one. The browsers themselves, Chrome, Edge, they have to be compliant. So if you are installing a browser, when you download the browser, wherever you download from, it needs to have now a CE mark conformity paper explaining how it's made, what are the security principles followed, what is their SBOM. They don't have to publish SBOM itself, but they need to describe very well all the evidence that they have proper application security program around this product. Mobile apps, I just say that web apps are not in scope, but mobile apps are, because whatever you install on your phone, it's your device, that's considered on-premise software. So if you thought that, well, I just have maybe I work for a bank, I have an online browser app, so I'm not in scope, but because today almost every web app also have a mobile app, suddenly you are in scope as well. So technically, almost all software that is sold in Europe will be required to comply with the proper security principles. This is an online app, so it's a home monitoring system. You think, well, this is not compliant, right? Because it runs in the browser. It is because it is a backend, it's a data processing side of a product that is placed on the market. In this case, you have a camera which sends some data to the cloud, and that information is visible in the browser where you can remotely control your home, for example. And this is becoming the extension of that product, suddenly, the data processing part of it. So it has to be compliant too. And perhaps also for NIS2. Pepperoni pizza machine. What do you think yourself? Do you think it has to be compliant? Yes, because it's a product, it's a physical product, and probably there is some PLC in it, programmable logic controller installed in this machine that controls it, and maybe it sends even data, analytics data to the cloud for the backup of the PLC software and for metrics. So if you are working for a customer or you're part of a manufacturer that makes any industrial machines, it can be food processing machines, it can be any equipment for transportation, for logistics, whatever. If you can see it, if you can sell it, and there is some logic in it, it's probably has to have also risk assessment and threat modeling and the SBOM, everything basically. And by the way, it also falls under the NIS2 because food manufacturers are considered important entities too. So there you have to probably think of both. Now, some of industries have their own standard and requirements. For example, military, they have their own more strict requirement list. So they are out of the scope of CRA. Automotive industry, they have also their own requirement standard out. Ships also, they have their own standard for cybersecurity, for safety, etc. it's not in scope. Medical devices, they also have their own dedicated laws, out of scope. Aviation, out of scope. For trains, to my knowledge, new standards are being developed at the moment because they want to make sure that trains are being hotfixed and supported for at least like 10 years, 15 years. You don't want to have a very short lifespan of such transport. So for now, it is kind of under CRA because that new standard is not yet published. But as soon as that standard is published, the trains will be also out of scope. Now, for all of these products, I just gave you examples. The law divides it into 4 categories. The default one, it covers almost 90% of all the products placed on European market, almost everything, all the on-premise apps, business apps, standard office apps, smart office apps, anything consumer-like devices, maybe your vacuum cleaner at home, your smart lamp, your garage door, that is all default category. And now, as of next year, manufacturers are required to perform self-assessment for now, but it doesn't mean that you can just ignore it because in some countries, like for example, if you read a German recommendation how to comply with CRA, they say you do self-assessment, but you upload the evidence to the portal they provide. So if you do threat modeling, you have some risk assessment, you documented your unacceptable risk and what you're going to do about it, you still have to upload that evidence to authorities, but you do self-assessment, you're not being audited. And you have to retain that all conformity information for a very long time, I believe for 10 years. This is low risk categories, and there is a lot to do. Class 1, this a bit more elevated cybersecurity risk products. We are talking about like password managers, maybe CM systems, embedded browsers. This is much less, of course, a type, not as wide as default one, but still here you can do self-assessment unless there is a dedicated standard published, and for some of it, for example, password managers, there might be more detailed guidance here. But if there's nothing for you specifically published, then you can do self-assessment. And for class 2, which has significant risk, maybe firewalls, actual desktop servers, they will have third-party audit externally. If you want to sell, you pass this third-party audit, you get a conformity paper that you can publish on your website next to your product downloads, or if it's a DVD, you put it in a box, and that way you can demonstrate that you compliant. And that paper doesn't have to have all the SSDLC policies, everything in it. You can just have a link. If you are curious about our AppSec program or how we develop this product, what are the risks for you, what to do, what not to do, go to this website on our distributor, and you can read the rest. Basically, any importer that wants to sell anything in Europe has to make sure that those stuff are hosted and available for the consumers. And finally, the critical, these are most critical stuff, like smart meter gateways. Maybe if you hack those, you can completely cut off the electricity supply or water supply in Europe. So for such devices, there will be mandatory certificate requirements. So you have to get audit, you get a certificate, only then you can sell it to government authorities or infrastructure companies for usage. If you Google it, you'll find the details. So if you just say CRA law document, you will see this document from European Commission, and that document has a list of all the examples for each of the category, and you can just find your own product type and read what applies to you. So it's very important to understand under which category you fall, and that will change a bit the scope of your work. But in any case, if you're selling anything in the European market, most likely you have enough to do. There's plenty to do. And I will show you in a moment like what kind of requirements are there. Fines. This table compares the GDPR fines to CRA, and GDPR is the European privacy law. Evidence shows that first couple of years, like first 3-4 years, there were not many fines, but then it picked up at about 2 trillion euros after year 4 and 5. And today's expectation is that this will be 3 to 4 times more than that. And if you don't comply, you can lose up to 15 million or 2.5% of your global turnover. That is the income coming to your company before you actually count the costs, so that the revenue, you can lose 2.5% of your global revenue, even if you just sell part of your products in Europe. That's can be fine. If you sell without non-conformity. If you have CE mark conformity, all the paperwork, but you didn't do the administrative requirements, maybe you didn't notify the authorities on time when you have a vulnerability, you have to disclose vulnerability, but you didn't, maybe there is some misinformation there, you lose 10 million or 2% of your global turnover. And if you mislead authorities, for example, you wrote down that I do threat modeling every year, and then I use it for the assessing my risk prioritization, and I always create SBOM. And you wrote it down, but you actually bluffed, you don't do any of those, and you don't have it, you are misleading the surveillance authorities, you can lose 1% of your global turnover for just false information, partial in everything you do. So maybe you do a lot, almost everything, but part of it is not correct, or you lie that you disclosed or not disclosed, you can lose this money. And the worst, worse than losing 2.5% of your revenue, is to lose access to European market. It's a big market today. If you don't comply, you just won't be able to sell, and distributors will have to pull back the product, and they will not be allowed to distribute, etc. It can be a big control also for, let's say, markets that Europeans don't like. It can be used as political tool. Maybe something is manufactured, let's say, in Asia, and can you imagine how much work it is to comply and to certify and support it after, just once you place the product on the market, you have to support it for at least 5 years. You need to continue monitoring your SBOM, continue monitoring for new disclosed vulnerabilities. And when there is a issue, you need to deliver a hotfix even after placing product on the market. It's easy with a physical product. This is sold on the market. That's it. But with software products, SSDLC, Secure Lifecycle, has to be supported afterwards. I want to go a bit more into what it means to being placed on the market. So I say that any digital product that is being placed on the market, official description is that products are placed on the market by a manufacturer or importer or maybe distributor. The moment it's placed for sale for the first time, maybe you imported the product, but it's not yet available for the sale. That's not the time, but as soon as it's available for sale for public, that is the moment it's placed on the market. And next year, as of 11 December, that day, everything placed on the market will have to comply fully with this new law. Everything that is placed on the market before 11 December does not have to fully comply. So you don't have to provide the evidence about your secure developer lifecycle for everything you sell until that day. And after, yes, every document, every product needs to have a reference to how it is developed and what are the risks and how you mitigate those risks. This is timeline. The law was first published in 2024. It came in effect end of 2024. You just saw that notification obligation is coming 11 September. I will explain what it means. And the full applicability is next year, end of next year. Notification obligation. So the part that is required this year in September, whenever manufacturers notice actively exploited vulnerabilities in their products or security incidents, they will have to inform authorities within 24 hours as soon as they notice it. Then within 72 hours, they will have to update them again, telling that, well, now we know more, this type of information is leaked, we are working on this, etc. And after 30 days, they have to provide final report explaining what is their mitigation, how they fixed it, what was the decision, and how it happened, lessons learned, etc. For all the products after end of this year. They also must inform the users of these incidents and also give them guidance on the mitigation steps. And by the way, notification obligation is applicable for all the products you have. So all the products next year have to be developed with a secure by design mindset, the secure by design mindset. But anything you develop so far, even maybe you sold the product 5 years ago, and you notice that this product suddenly is actively being exploited and there's a security incident, even for old product, you have to inform users and authorities that, look, I became aware that the product I sold to Nariman last year has an active exploit. And for full applicability next year, then when you need to have all the evidence, you need to have declaration of conformity, so that the paper explaining your SSDLC, all the risks, and how to make sure it's secure by default, how to change the password if you want to change the password, for all the information for end user related to cybersecurity. You need to provide technical documentation, how it's built, like what users need to know about it. Secure by design, it needs to be secure by default. You need to have vulnerability management process sound in place for the next year. And the security requirements need to be defined based on the risk. Sorry. And this is a very important part, because usually in many different standards, you just have a checklist and you have to comply with that. In this case, it's not just a checklist. CRA also assumes shared responsibility. You don't have to assume that your consumers are not smart. That's very stupid. Basically, it's the security shared responsibility. If you write in the box that, guys, there is a password on your modem printed on the box. If you think it's compromised, if somebody took it, here's how to change the password. And that's enough, because you know that you took your side of the risk, and then it's their risk to change it afterwards. Like in this product, you see the stroller for babies. You don't have to install a camera to make sure that there's no baby in the stroller when you close it. That will be stupidity of the end user if they close the stroller with a baby inside. So it's a shared responsibility. You don't have to write like on the cup, like in some in the coffee places. Sometimes you write, be careful, the coffee is hot, don't spill on yourself. This law is not like that. You need to be reasonable and only write about risks and provide guidance to people for the reasonable things that they need to know and be aware about. Okay. You have to support those products for at least 5 years for cybersecurity. If there is evidence that there's active exploit, you have to provide a hot fix. So whatever I buy, whatever digital product I buy going forward, I know that software will be supported for long enough. My vacuum cleaner that I'm using at home suddenly will not, the server or the app that I'm using on my phone to control that vacuum cleaner will not disappear. And if there is a security vulnerability in it, the company is going to push the update. And it means that if you're selling products, you need to think how you're going to deliver the hotfixes, because lots of industrial manufacturers, they don't have a sound hotfix process. They have a ways to update vulnerabilities, but imagine they have thousands of customers that are using those machines. And maybe they can visit the customer and stick a USB and update software, but it's not scalable. So you need to think how to do remote rollout of hotfixes if there's a security problem. Because if you don't, or especially if you hide it, then you are in trouble. You can lose 1 million of your global revenue. Sorry, 1% of your global revenue. For some parts of the standard, European Commission is going to publish sub-standards explaining exactly how to do vulnerability management, how to define security requirements, what is exactly important critical products. So a few things are still in the way, and we have an organization called Sensenelec and Etsy. They are working on the standard still, but for the most part, it's all clear. The roadmap is clear. We know what to do. It's time to start preparing and documenting your methodology and your evidence, how you do your AppSec program. For those standards, for new ones, there is a public inquiry. Every European country, there are some websites where you can go and you can already read them. The draft is published, and you can give your feedback as an industry representative, saying what works, what not. Last year, when CRA was still in the draft, the European Commission invited Linux Foundation, OWASP organization. We traveled to Brussels and we were asked for our opinion. And we had a chance to give feedback early enough, and all these feedbacks are accommodated in the law. So when we read the law, and me and my colleagues who did read whole document, we do agree that the requirements are sound and reasonable. So it's a good law, basically. Few basic requirements are mentioned in the document, but it also says for the rest you need to do risk assessment yourself. I'm going to show you what things are explicitly mentioned, and then I will show you like what else you could do. Explicitly, it says you need to do risk assessment. You need to do risk assessment and focusing on the end user, on the risks towards the consumer, not on your own manufacturing facilities towards consumer. NIS2 is for your own manufacturing facilities. You need to do threat modeling. You need to proactively brainstorm with developers, with architects, product owners before you do the implementation. You brainstorm how this new feature, how this product can be abused, and how we can put the consumer in danger. That's all need to be thought out proactively in advance. And based on that activity, you come up with security requirements. So if you found some theoretical problems, maybe out of that during threat modeling, you can say, my software should not do this, or my product should not be able to do that. It should not be possible to achieve that with my product. So you need to have a list of security requirements as part of your project or part of your product documentation in the project when you implement. Then when you actually develop it or implement the software, you need to do secure implementation. So the developers need to be aware of the requirements that you defined. And at verification, when the quality department takes it over, they need to check, all right, so this is a functional requirement, what my software and or products are supposed to be doing. And this is security requirement, non-functional part, what my product is not supposed to be doing or what it should not be possible to do. So at the QA, there should be also a proper policy, proper process that they're aware that they need to also check for security requirements. And even better to hire pen testers for that. You need to have documentation describing and explaining end user how to configure your software or your product in a secure manner. And you must have a first level SBOM. And by the way, you don't have to distribute SBOM to your consumers, but you must have it because the authorities, they will ask for it. They can ask for it in some cases. And there's also law says that European ENISA, they can ask to prepare statistics about usage of third-party components in European market. So it's will be collected, and they promise that they're not going to disclose what you have or how it works, how your product works, but you don't have to distribute it to end users. You need to also continuously monitor for third-party vulnerabilities after release during the operation, because you place the product on the market. How are you going to know if there is actively exploited vulnerability in it? If you monitor different security advisory boards, National Vulnerability Database or GitHub Advisory or any other provider, there should be automated way to be notified about it. And you also need to agree and document what will be your incident response plan. So when you see that there is active exploit of your products on the market, what you're going to do about it, you need to be documenting this, educating people, everybody need to be on the same page, so you don't have to be surprised when it actually happens. And you could ask a legal team to take care of it. And I see in some organizations, they just say, yeah, I'm waiting for the legal department to tell me what requirements to implement. That's not the way to do it. You will not be able to do it this way. You will be very disappointed if you try that. The better way is to at least start by using something like a SSDLC maturity framework, Security Development Lifecycle maturity framework. You have a OWASP SAM, the open source version. You have a BSIM if you want to pay for a professional company to do it for you. Very expensive, by the way. But if you're a big corporate, it can be. These frameworks, they give you a structural way to document, implement your application security program and activities. There are like 90 activities. Each of them can be level 1, 2, or 3. At level 1, like very simple way to do stuff. At level 2, properly. Level 3, like proper way, like advanced way. And I strongly recommend to use this one as a starting point. OWASP sum looks like this. So here you see 30 activities divided into different business domains. Each of them have 3 levels of maturity. Each of that domain, well, it's called business function. Then you have security practices, and under them we have streams. And for every activity here, if you go to owassum.org and then navigate to model, you can read what is the benefit of this activity, what is activity itself, like what is expected from you to implement. Then if you want to interview your counterpart, maybe you're AppSec engineer, and you want to interview a certain product to understand how mature they are, there is a question for you, so you don't have to come up with a question. It says, well, are you doing this or that? And then when you hear an answer, you can compare that answer towards the quality criteria. Quality criteria, if all of those are met, you can consider that you do this activity at this level of maturity. And you have set of this question, quality criteria explanation, for all 3 levels of maturity. It's a great way to see what's your AppSec program maturity today. And yeah, for every question, you can also have multiple level of answers. Maybe, yes, do you educate your developers for secure coding? You can say, yes, I do it. And yes, I cover some teams. Yes, I cover all teams. And you can have, by having different levels of answers. OWASP sum toolbox, there is an Excel version, there is online Summit tool. You can then see nice spiderweb diagrams, exactly like where your gaps are. How it works, you see such a gap, so you did assessment, you see your maturity, maybe you're strong on environment and incident management, but not so strong as secure build, secure design, and architecture. Then you set a target, you say, okay, I want to reach there because I have some risks. You implement it, you work the plan, then half a year later, you again do a small interview internally, you see what your current situation is, you work on it again, then you set a new target, you work on it, etc. That's how the flow usually works. So I do it in my organizations where I worked before, where I'm helping now build AppSec programs. It's a living program. It's not one-time assessment. You do assessment, you set a target, we work on it. You do assessment, you set a target, you work on it. And that's how it works. Talking of Xygeni, and I choose to work with them because, yeah, this is a European company in Spain, and they have very elegant and simple solution that can work on SaaS and on-premise, where you plug it in, and it comes with a SaaS, SCA, DAS, security scan, CI/CD scan, infrastructure scan. Basically, all the tools I need is just coming out of the box. I have a couple of pet projects myself at the moment at GitHub. Within an hour, I connected to GitHub Action. It's sent there for a scan, and I could see my vulnerabilities, and I left them on purpose. Don't hack me, because I'm testing the system here and there. But it works, and I decided to use it in some of my projects first, and now with the customers where possible, I collaborate with Xygeni to implement it. Small advertisement for them, but just to let you know. I mentioned that you need to set a target, right? You did assessment, but you need to plan ahead. But how do you set a target? And this is a difficult question, because we talked about risk-based requirements, right? So probably you need to set a target based on the requirements you have, and you do your requirements based on the risks you have, and you do your risk based on threat modeling you did. So I'll show you like 4 steps, 5 steps, what you need to do before you do the SAM assessment that I just showed you. First, obviously, you need to document what product you have. Architecture diagrams, data flow diagrams, maybe draw trust boundaries and show I have a physical product and I have dependencies. This is how I'm deploying it. You need to also think about system of interest. That's what the scope of this system, of this product, what is actually doing. And you need to think of a stakeholder interest, that end user, what are they trying to do? How do you think they want to use your system? So you need to describe it well, so you understand exactly what this solution is doing. Then you do risk assessment. And if you do risk assessment for the corporate inside the company, you ask, okay, like what risk I have, maybe fire risk or flood risk. When you talk in a CRA context, it's about risks towards the end user. And how do you assess risk towards the end user of the product that the end user is going to use? It's basically threat modeling. You think, okay, what do we have? What can go wrong? What are you going to do about it? And you come up with this list of threats. And we recommend that to use just threat modeling to do this risk assessment. And out of those all threats, you need to make a list of which are unacceptable. So which of these risks are unacceptable for your end user. And once you have them, now you have risks, and based on for each risk, you can discuss what security requirements I have. Like to eliminate this risk, I need to implement SCA program. Maybe I have a risk that the third-party components I'm using have a vulnerability suddenly. To eliminate it, I have a requirement. I need to implement secure build and have integration with the Xygeni SCA tool, for example. I have a risk that the developer forgets a password in the source code. I need to implement secret scanning. Then, based on those requirements, now you can see which SAM activities are actually more critical or more important for your risk from here. And at this moment, you're going to do some assessment to understand actually, all right, I know what I need to do. Let's see what is actually being done on the floor. Because you'll be surprised that usually it's way worse than you think it is. And once you know what you have, your maturity gap, you know your CRA risk criticality, like what requirements you need, you can do priority. And this is how you define the target, let's say. And this is just a long list of all the steps. I only showed 4 or 5, but this is a summary of it. And what I would truly recommend is to check ISO 27034 standard. At OWASP, we have a working group that we are liaison with this working group from ISO. This standard helps organizations design a sound methodology of application security lifecycle. Like, how do you define application security controls? How do you risk? How do you come up with a requirement? How do you design a control? What do you do afterwards? How do you demonstrate it's actually done? And what you're trying to achieve is demonstrability by design. For all your processes must have demonstrability. So you should be able to show the evidence that you actually did it. So that's very important part of this project you're going to have this year to be compliant. Also, what helps when you try to define in your priorities, you can check owasp.org/benchmark. We collect as OWASP SAM team. We collect industrial benchmark. We had, I believe, over 80 now inputs from different industries, and you can look what other companies do, which controls they are implementing. It's a very useful thing. And some insights for that is you can see that if you map CRA requirements to SAM can go up to 3 points, but it say that on the operation side, on average, it's expected to be 2.33 out of 3. So lots of expectations are on the operation side, less on the governance. It's about education of employees and the culture, etc. On design side, it's a lot: threat modeling, security requirements definition, and on implementation, secure build, secure deployment. These are important parts that are expected from you. And again, if you look in that benchmark website, you can see these gaps as well. So this, for example, application risk profile and threat modeling, it's 2 topics that CRA needs. And based on definition, it says you need to do 3 out of 3 points. But if you look at industry today, on average is like 142. So like only half of the companies on average do it halfway right, let's say. And on the right side, you see the gaps between the industrial actual benchmark and what CRA expects. So the most problematic parts are threat modeling, defect tracking, legacy components management, architecture mitigation. So these all the topics that we need to work on this year. It's also a new era for supply chain security, because if you are doing some pet projects in evening, you publish some open source libraries or maintain open source libraries. It doesn't, you're not liable, let's say. You're not going to be fined because it's voluntary work, but it does change a bit the game going forward. On this picture, you can see a software manufacturer on the left. That's any company that makes a product. So that's a software part of the product, let's say. It can be in-house code, and you have the artifacts. You might be using open source repositories that are managed by OSS stewards. Those are organizations like Linux Foundation, Eclipse Foundation. And you might be using other third-party software as part of your supply chain. Who is going to pay the fine here? Open source maintainer, contributor? What do you think? The organization that makes the money first is going to be fined if something goes wrong. And it's their responsibility to ensure that the supply chain is safe. So whatever you get and sell, if you pick a open source library that is not well maintained and there is a vulnerability in it, you cannot say, yeah, I cannot do anything. The developer is not fixing it. The contributor to open source project is not doing anything. Yeah, it's your problem. It's not that person's problem. So you are the one liable. Also, if you buy software from another person and they also make money, yeah, you can transfer the liabilities to them. That's fine. And in some cases, you have some open source projects that also make money at the same time from those projects. So they publish their software, but they also make money. So they can be also liable. Key takeaways. CRA will affect your market access. If you don't do it, you won't be able to make business in Europe anymore. You need to have continuous documentation and evidence of your methodology and your process. You need to use, you don't need to, but I do strongly recommend to use OWASP to have some structure around your activities. Don't come up yourself with a list of what I need to do for AppSec. OWASP has everything. You don't need everything. It has everything. You can pick what you need based on your risk assessment. And CRA requirements is risk-based. So there is no checklist. You cannot, it's not a checklist exercise. You need to have evidence of your methodology, of your process. You need to have a process. You need to have evidence of your process. And in your process, you need to have controls, activities, and you need to have evidence of your activities. And it need to be demonstrate, should be demonstrability. Well, you should be able to demonstrate that you actually did it. Now, that was it on my presentation. I work with a few, say, software manufacturers, and myself, I'm part of the OWASP team. I'm a volunteer in ISO organization, and I work with, in Secure Habits team, almost every member is same time a volunteer. If you have a nice use case and you want to talk with me, you can scan this code, or you can go on this website, and you can see directly my calendar there. I will be very happy to have 1 hour call with you. It's free. And no obligation. I don't expect that we're going to work together on assignments. Of course, if we see a win-win situation where you need my help or my team's help or Xygeni's help, perfect, I can try. But otherwise, if you don't need, I'm very happy to build my network, to build connections, to help you and see it as volunteering work. I allocated some days of the week specifically to help the industry this way. So I do invite you to send me this, to schedule with me an hour, and let's talk about it. And now I would like to take some questions. Eden, you mentioned needing to provide a first level SBOM. Are there any requirements around transitive dependencies? No, it says that you need to have first level dependencies because the CCERT and ENISA, they can find transitive requirements themselves. So if they import that SBOM to their tools, they can see what these tools are, and that version depends on. Explicitly, it says first level. Like when you buy a shampoo box, it just says the top level things, not everything. Like I use this plastic and this water, just like the main things. Thank you, Eden, for the question. Mario, threat modeling is too academic currently. The main focus should not create a threat modeling model, yes, but to collect and implement the non-functional security requirements. Yes, that's the goal, to collect the non-security requirements. Threat modeling is a tool. The goal is to collect security requirements. Keeping the threat model documentation up to date is a hassle with not much benefit. Why is the CRA asking for the threat modeling? Can we be compliant by having only security requirements? How is it going to be audited? Great question, Mario, because there is a lots of discussions about it in threat modeling community, and I'm active participant myself at threat mod conference as well. And today there are two groups of two type of threat modelers, let's say. If you buy threat modeling for a cybersecurity consultancy company, they will come for 4 days, 5 days, and do very detailed threat model one, and you will keep it for your one product, and you have to keep it up to date. It's a hassle. Yes, I don't like that approach. For me, and according to Adam Shostak's definition, like I was at his workshop in recently at OWASP, for him, it's exercise that you do before you start the project development. It's a small exercise, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, just to think about what can go wrong in the context of whatever you are changing at the moment. And he said, don't bring any existing diagrams to threat modeling session. But that's what he said there. But in that workshop, it's better to just start with a clean paper, quickly sketch on the whiteboard what elements you have, what you're trying to change or achieve, and then brainstorm of what can go wrong and how it can be abused. And the goal is to provide security requirement list indeed. That's the most important. So there's an accent on security requirements. And I say threat modeling will help because I believe that you should be doing threat modeling as a small delta exercise at the beginning of the project, not that huge model that you have to keep always up to date for your product. That's not the way I do it. So yes, good point. And the goal is not to maintain and have a huge threat model. You need that for yourself maybe, but the goal is to know your risks towards the end user and know what security requirements you have. And you need to know what is unacceptable security risk. So it's even not about all the risk. It's what is unacceptable and what you're going to do about it. And either you fix it, mitigate it, or you inform the consumer that, look, we are aware there's this unacceptable risk. Make sure to use our product this way so you are not compromised. Yeah, great question, Mario. How CE conformity document will be distributed for on-premise software? Yeah. If it's on-premise software, you have to publish it in a portal where the software is available for download. And it needs to be also in every language that your consumers would understand. It's like when you buy medicine or anything, you have all the pages of the paper in all languages that you see where you sell in Europe. So it needs to be written in a language that end user can understand and that authorities can understand. And yeah, for on-premise, it's just wherever you distribute it. And also, it is recommended to have a website. So maybe you are in China, you make a product, and you sell it in Europe through AliExpress or whatever, Temu. You need to have easily discoverable website in language that consumers can understand and use. And then consumers should be able to easily find you and be able to disclose the security flow, for example, as well. So all of these things need to be in place, like how consumers will report me flows, how I consume the incident information from advisory boards. Basically, you need to be visible. You need to be there for 5 years at least. And you need to support hotfixes for 5 years, but also the technical documentation need to be available and hosted, served on the website for at least 10 years. So for 10 years, you need to have all the documents available afterwards. Next question from Albert. I missed the one from Albert. Okay, I'm going to one from Mario. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, Albert. How CE conformance document will be distributed on premise? Yes, that I answered. Thank you. Then we can go to a question from Mario. And he said, OWASP is academic. What should you implement? Actually, that's the best you get. It's not academic. It's like lots of other standards and NIST, SSTF, or lots of things are academic because they are developed by, let's say, lawmakers or let's say standard developers. OWASP is developed by practitioners. It is by us for us. When I read how to do a secure build in OWASP, it gives you explanation provided by OWASP team, but it's also under every activity on the bottom, there is a community guidance link. If you go there, you can see the text and explanation and best practices recommended by other OWASP members, open source community basically. And if you think its description is too academic, too high level, everyone is welcome to contribute. And in some cases, the language can be too general because we try to be technology agnostic and not focus on any specific technology. But we would link to other standards. For example, if you, for the verification activities, we would say, go and use ASVS, Application Verification Security Standard, to test your application. So OWASM would link you to the right place. OWASM is a place to start, and then we will redirect people to different standards that actually should be used. All right. Again, thank you so much for everyone who joined this call. It was a pleasure to share with you the information I discovered from myself or from my colleagues at the OWASP organization. And if you have a product that you are placing in the European market and you already even have an application security program, a good one, still, we can have a call and I'll be happy to brainstorm with you if your strategy is in the right direction, if you're doing it right. And yeah, that would be great to know you. And yeah, thanks everybody. Finalize the call here.